Hello, everyone. Welcome back after a lengthy hiatus as the Endurance E-Racing World Championship returns here on GTR 24H. Well, welcome to the official preview show. My name is Alex Goldschmidt, and once again, one of my good friends, my partner in crime, as always, Yusuf bin Sahal, joins me fresh off of his antics at the BUKC 24 Hours. So getting behind the wheel in real life. But Yusuf, how are things? Are you keeping well?
Yeah, I'm doing quite well. You mentioned, lengthy hiatus, and I thought, well, since we're having a hiatus, I might as well get myself some track time in. But even at GTR, we had that little old Nürburgring at 24 hours, and we've been having some of the hill climb events as well. So I'll be getting in a little bit of racing. But that being said, I'm excited to be getting back to the main event, the Endurance E-Racing World Championship.
Yes, round 4 coming up this weekend, and it is the once around the clock at the Nürburgring Grand Prix circuit, not the Nordschleife that we had just a few weeks ago. Unfortunately, there were some technical issues at the studio, which meant that we weren't able to broadcast the whole of the event. We were really, really looking forward to it myself, Yusuf and you and O'Leary, as well as John and Peter over in Denmark. We were really looking forward to it, but obviously things did happen. We can only apologise about it, but we have to say a big thank you to the teams and the drivers for putting up their relevant Twitch streams. So it meant that you were able to keep up with the action, irrespective of the fact that the main event that we were hosting didn't quite really go off as planned. But apart from that, I mean, Yusuf, it was a really, really good event. We saw that Burst Esports, with the likes of Yoni Simoncic, I mean, that qualifying session on the Friday, which myself and Ewan commentated on. Never in my wildest dreams would I see that Yoni Simoncic would have decided, right, let's go on a binge of speed in this Audi R8. And they were true to form. They took the overall victory for the second year in succession. And it just goes to show that you have a team like Burst Esports in there. They're not going to take anything lying down, are they?
And we saw it last year, Burst Esports, and I forget who they were with. I think it was Casper Henningsen, who was battling with Yerne, and they were battling for so many hours, just neck and neck. And well, it was similar again for the 24 hours of the Nordschleife this year. Great to see Yerne out, and where we kind of expect him to be, which is with that rocket-like pace and somewhat dominating. So yeah, good to see the Nordschleife happening, and a fantastic race as well.
And also, speaking of the Nürburgring Nordschleife, news broke earlier on in the past 2 weeks that the late Sabine Schmitz has a corner officially being named after her. It's turn 15, which is the left-hand hairpin, which is, funny enough, not named, and it's just before the right-hander at Hatzenbach. And that effectively becomes official as of the next NLS, what formerly was known as the VLN series. And that will be instigated as of September the 11th. It was something that our very own John Fabricius Terrell was very, very adamant in saying, well, it needs to happen. And when I posted it in the GTR 24H commentators Facebook group, he said, told you. And yes, I do stand corrected, John, but still by the amount of people that managed to make that happen, it did work out in the end. So it's really good to see that's happened, Yusuf. I think that's a real fitting testament to the character and the person that Sabina was, as well as being the only woman to ever have won it. And what's more, she won it in a BMW E36 M3, and she won it 2 years on the trot.
Yeah, and Sabine was a fantastic ambassador, not just for motor racing, not just for Nürburgring, but also for female racers, aspiring female drivers. So it's fantastic that she does have a corner named after her. It's also rather cool that there was still one corner left unnamed. I don't know if there are any more unnamed corners at the Nordschleife, because there seem to be a ton of named corners, and thankfully Sabine is on that list as well now.
Yes, so now we turn our attention. There's been a few developments since the third round at Sebring International Raceway. Firstly, the biggest news that came out of absolutely nowhere, Drillers Esports, now defunct. So quite a few drivers in that team, the likes of James Juba, the likes of Henry Simic, Martin Hemmingson, now having to scurry around and find a new home. So that has really changed things. So along with the Drillers Esports no longer being around, there's been a big change here at GTR 24H because newly announced on the R Factor 2 Endurance DLC, the Cadillac DPI VR is newly instigated, and that becomes our top tier class here at GTR 24H. It means there is a complete clear slate. Obviously, at the last round at Sebring, round 3 back in second weekend of March, if memory serves me correctly. I did say hiatus. I didn't realise it was going to be that lengthy, even with everything that's been going on, Yusuf, as we discussed earlier.
Yeah, but,
very, very. But we still kept ourselves busy. So the good thing is the Cadillac DPI, it's been used by the likes of Action Express, Wayne Taylor Racing. I know a couple of drivers, the likes of Philippe Albuquerque, have raced this car to success. The Cadillac DPI has won the Rolex Daytona 24 Hours 4 years on the bounce from 2017 to 2020. It's won 91 races out of 41 starts. It started with a 6.2 litre V8, a bit like the Mercedes AMG GT3, but then its capacity in terms of engine power has also been reduced. Now, apparently, Omicron Sim Racing were the closest, and I say that with a pinch of salt because we saw how ruthless in terms of aggressive driving characteristics, especially when we saw the likes of... Now, who was it? Was it Henry Simic that had that massive off and went into the shadow realm? I think it was round 2. Or was it
Casper Henningsen?
I think it was Casper Henningsen. You and I were on commentary at that point, and we saw
that he went over the barrier, wasn't it?
Yes, it went over the barriers. I still remember that. And
that
then,
was round 1, I think.
Oh, that was Indy. That was Indianapolis.
Indy. Yeah, it was.
Oh,
yeah.
And they still came back and won it.
Yeah,
much to the unwanted chagrin of Thomas Garcia. But Omicron are now back. They do have 2 podiums so far this season. They got 3rd at Indy and 2nd at Silverstone. So they're going to have the identical lineup led by Thomas Garcia. And hopefully they're going to look to take victory here at the Nürburgring. However, Satellite Racing, a big name in GTE and GT3, they have made their return. They've also made their intentions clear to return after a 2-round absence. So they went into hypercars, first round of the season, got 2nd, because obviously the dramas for Omicron Sim Racing. They had 2 3-lap penalties. They had 2 return to garages, and that race was one for them to truly forget. But they're looking to enter 2 into the DPI class. That's going to be rather interesting. 64, the number 64 car, Liam Rance, we know, Ryan Nash, David Nichols. And also, they've got a Spanish flair coming to the nigh on all-British lineup. Marco Rodriguez joins the crew. But then we take a look at the number 65. James Juba, Henry Simic in that lineup. Straight away, Yusuf. That is a mouth-watering standout lineup that they've got in both cars. And we haven't even talked about who else is in the 65 because Liam Rance is joining them. So he's running in both cars. And then Jimmy Nisola is also in there as well. But despite having GT experience, that's a cracking lineup for the 65 and the 64 as well.
And I'm interested to see what Satellite can pull out because, you know, when you look at the current Satellite racing team, or the one that had been kind of with us from the start in the GTA E-Class, the 128 car, you know, it wasn't great results. They had a P9 in Indianapolis, no points in Silverstone. Oh, sorry, I don't think they raced in Silverstone, or they had a DNF. And in Sebring, only 8 points. So, you know, this could be a big, you know, call-up for them. And now, with a team in the DPI class starting from fresher points, you know, it's Pinsim Drillers no longer with us, has kind of given us an opportunity to try out these DPI cars. And I don't think the DPIs are really going to be too much quicker than the LMP2. So there's a chance that the likes of Vargas Sim Racing could even be joining in that battle somewhere. We know how insanely quick they are. And it could just add a little bit of spice to the mix.
Yeah, Marcel Chinchik is one name that instantly springs to mind when you mention Varga Sim Racing. But then also the final confirmed DPI for this round is Viaductum. Normally runs in a Corvette.
Yeah.
They took the championship in 2020 after 2 race victories. They started driving GTE in the brightest, orangest Corvette C8 I have ever seen in my life. I think, when you see like the baby blue, which looks a bit glow in the dark, you see something like that. It was the car that you could always be guaranteed that if you looked up above with Google Maps on a track where GTR 24H was racing, you would see it at least 20 miles out easily. But I mean, the good thing is that Viaduct. Well, the bad thing is Viaduct, and they haven't had a good round. They haven't had a good championship. No. 2021 has been a season. The first half of the season, the first 3 rounds, has been one that they definitely want to put like water under the bridge. But then you've got Mikkel Sigurd is the only returning driver from the GTE crew. And then Nicholas Mock and real-life karting racer Alexander Hartvig joins the crew for the final 3 rounds, which includes the EEWC Le Mans 24-hour land finale in late October, the 27th to the 31st, if memory serves me correctly. Hopefully, we'll have some really good news to share with you all about that very, very soon. Also, some rumours. There's always rumours and gossip, isn't there? No matter whether it's real-life racing or sim racing. Apparently...
any sport, really.
Exactly, any sport. And normally, it's quite controversial. Well, hopefully, it won't be too controversial. But apparently, that Axel Racing might join us a little bit later on with 2 DPIs. That could be at the Spa 24 Hours in late August. And I'm hearing some little whispers that maybe there could be another GT3 entry coming in. But who knows? We could see another car. So that could be a 3rd entry. So 3 entries in 2 different classes. Maybe either, at Spa, definitely for the 2 DPIs from Axel. But then Le Mans, who knows? We could even have further entries come in. I mean, that just really whets the appetite for the second half of the season here, Yusuf, because we came into this. I mean, when you and I had our conversation late last year when I joined the commentary team, thanks to the newcomer, was really looking forward to the championship. I think now that with DPI coming in and the fact that it's reset the ledger at the top tier class, I know that some teams will probably be thinking, well, why bring in a car mid-season? Well, considering the fact that we had no more than 3 cars at the season opener, because it basically went like 3-2-1, didn't it? So we had Satellite Racing, Omicron Sim Racing, and Pin Sim Drillers Esports at Indianapolis. Silverstone, we had Omicron and we had Pin Sim. Then we just had Drillers for the 3rd round.
Yeah.
It was like literally we saw the public seppuku, the Japanese term for ritual suicide for the hypercar class, in public over the first 3 rounds of the championship. Yeah. So I think it's due diligence by both John and Peter back in Denmark, who have put a hell of a lot of hard work into this championship over the past few years, and especially with bringing on the hill climbing stuff, which has been really something different. It's been something different for both you and Ewan, because you've both commentated on it. I'm waiting for my chance to hopefully get in on the action, and hopefully that will be sooner rather than later. But I think the introduction of the DPI class has really given an opportunity for other teams to come back to the championship. And that's what you want. Yes. You want something fresh. You want something new. You want something exciting. And the DPI class hasn't been around that long in insurance standpoint, but it has definitely got pedigree.
Yeah, and you've already mentioned, and I should say Ewan has mentioned a lot in his article. For those who haven't seen it, make sure to check it out. It's on the GTR website, and yeah, the DPI classes are already, or I should say the Cadillac DPI has already won a fair few events, and it gives an opportunity for teams to jump in. It's fairly late on in the season, which means maybe some of those teams that weren't quite as sure whether they could commit for a whole season might now be interested, and we can see them come in, because you always have that case. I think for anyone who's run an event, you always know that a week before the event starts, you're all of a sudden going to get loads of entries. When you thought that you only had 10 entries, all of a sudden it jumps up to about 25. And then at the
Yeah.
same time, over the course of a season, the numbers do start to dwindle as things do pop up for different entries. So it's good to see that there's going to be new cars making their way and new faces as well, and maybe some old faces joining those new faces for effectively new teams in our new DPI class.
Yeah, so the circuit, which we'll be racing at once around the clock, starting from midday Central European summertime, this coming Saturday, the 26th of June, we go once around, well, effectively once around a 12-hour span. Free practice gets underway 8 p.m. Central European summertime this coming Thursday, and then both qualifying sessions, qualifying 1 and qualifying 2, we start at 7 p.m. Central European summertime on the 25th, which is this coming Friday, and then 9:30 p.m. for qualifying 2. Let's have a look at the circuit now, Yusuf. Just under 3.2 miles, okay, 15 turns. A lot of the drivers will be thinking, well, we had a great test at the Nürburgring. Might be able to have a chance to relax after the Nordschleife. But oh no, it's a very different animal. You know, we've had three very different tracks so far. Now we've got a fourth. I think I'm just trying to remember. I think this actually is the smallest that in terms of length circuit on our calendar, because Indianapolis is longer than this. Silverstone is 3.6 miles. Sebring, I think, was a little bit longer as well. So I think we're in for a very tight and technical display of precision, accuracy, and waiting to make the strategy count. Of course, overtaking is at a premium. There are places like, say, the Schumacher S's, going from Ford through the Parabolica style straight down to Dunlop, going through into the Haughaken at turn 1, the Mercedes Arena, you come out of there, you get the run coming out of the Mercedes Arena down to Valvoline, but also Advan, a fast corner taken at 5th gear in a GTE car that's going to be taken at over 230 kilometers an hour. I hate to think what the speeds will be in a DPI, because that'll be a new test for everybody. But this track started back in the mid-1980s. It's hosted DTM, it's hosted EEWC GT Masters, and now, in the virtual sense, it hosts GTR 24H this weekend. What are the particular parts of the circuit that really intrigue you the most in terms of a commentator perspective?
Well, I think when you're looking at, in terms of overtaking, let's say within class, because when you're looking between classes, pretty much overtaking can happen anywhere. You're looking at turn 1, you're heading down the hill, very late braking for that hairpin, but it's also, you know, relatively long braking zone as well, where you can really get your nose down the inside of someone. And the other opportunity is heading into that NGK chicane. There's 2 different layouts of the chicane. You've got, you know, the very tight left, right, but the one we'll be running is that more free-flowing left, right. And it does mean that you can brake a little bit later into the corner, but as someone who has been fortunate enough on certain sim racing platforms to drive the Nürburgring, mainly on ACC, so slightly different to R Factor 2, that the NGK chicane is probably one of my favorite parts of the circuit, just because it's slow, but you can carry so much speed into it, and you have to brake as late as you dare, get off the brake, and then just carry the speed through using as much of the curbing as you can. And that curbing can really unsettle the car. And if you get it slightly wrong, it just chucks you out wide, and, well, you're going to be losing a whole bunch of time. Other place to watch out for, Schumacher S. Very fast left, right, pretty much flat out if you can get the entry right. And I was actually speaking to Tiziano Brioni in my interview, and after the interview we were just kind of discussing different sims and how they work, and we were talking actually a little bit about the Schumacher S, because I was saying I can't take it flat, and Tiziano was saying you probably don't want to take it flat, because if you take it flat, yes, you might be able to take it flat and gain some time, but half the time you're probably just not quite going to get the entry right. And all of that time you gained over the previous laps through that particular corner, you'll just lose instantly. And that's something that you always have to consider in the race, not just in endurance racing, in sprint racing as well, compared to qualifying. Can you do it consistently quick? And that is what matters.
Yeah, I mean, especially when, you know, we've also had previously our first season of the sprint series on Assetto Corsa Competizione.
Yes.
And I know for a fact that you're going through that in a GT3 car at the best part of nearly 170 to 190 kilometers an hour at fourth gear. You put a foot wrong on that curbing.
Yeah.
Oh, you can end up in the barriers. And I won't be at all surprised if the race this weekend provides pretty much some of the same. But yeah, you say about the Schumacher S's, the NGK chicane. One of my favorite ones is actually turn one going into the Mercedes arena. So going into the Haughauken, and I've seen it before on multiple other different platforms where people have actually taken the outside line approach to get the cutback, to get the inside run through into the Mercedes arena. And they have made it work. So that's another perfect opportunistic place to overtake. But really, we have to look at the championship standings of what we've got currently at the moment. So at the minute, we're going to go through the three classes that we do have still running before the intro. Obviously, the sort of saying goodbye to the hypercar and welcoming DPI on board. So LMP2, well, we don't really need to say much about Vargas Sim Racing. It has been a perfect season. Perfect season so far. Will that be broken? We'll find out very, very soon later on this week. Probably not. Yeah. Sorry, frog in my throat there.
I'm dropping the car stickers this early on, you know.
You know what? Because you want it. You want it to happen. You want something like maybe say Juices or Mugen to sort of like put the frighteners on the apple cart and rock the boat, so to speak. Well, talking of Juices and Mugen, they're both equal on points, 35 apiece. Vargas Sim Racing have got a 46-point advantage. Yeah. They've had pole position, completed race bonus, every single victory. If there was a point for fastest lap in each race, they'd have that as well. Ramada Motorsport, go on.
I was just going to say, you know, Vargas Sim Racing, if they win the next two races, they've won the championship before the double pointer in
exactly.
Le Mans.
That's one thing that we keep on forgetting to mention to you people out there, that Le Mans is a double points round. And I couldn't think of anywhere else to do that, to be honest with you. Ramada Motorsport, DSG Motorsport, the 334, formerly Fair Racing team. And they've got they're equal on points, 29, a point behind DEAC Hackers. DSR Nightmare, ProSim, B32, E-Team Brit, DSR Dream Team, and Abstineo Force Polonia. Every single team that has competed in at least, well, in pretty much two of the three rounds have all scored points. So that's really good to see that everyone has had a little bite of the cherry. GTE. Oh, it's looking close. We thought the Musto GDE Sports in the 53 car were going to be leading coming out of Sebring, but it was the WOSR iZone Performance Porsche in the 51 that leads by just 4 points. DIS Sim Racing Lab, one of their drivers, well, very well known to everyone in these parts, Andy Kirsten. Currently P3 at the moment, 43 points. Volante Racing in the 66, which I think, if memory serves me correctly, has our equivalent of Valtteri Bottas that Mr. Bin Suhail has managed to interview.
I think it's Kimi Räikkönen.
Well, it is Kimi Räikkönen if he wants to be, but what is this? Pauli Ahonen.
Oh, Pauli
Ahonen. I had to think about that one for a moment. But thank goodness I got that right. They're currently.
I almost said Jiri Toman for a second. So that's a completely different driver.
I think Jiri would have been messaging you like the plague if you'd have said that. It'd be like saying, Yusuf, it wasn't me. Come on, man, get it right. So it was Pauli Ahonen. It could have been. Really. Well, it could have been taken one way or the other. You know that. Volante Racing, 9 points adrift in fourth. The number 54 Musto GD Esports. Now, if memory serves me correctly, wasn't it the 54 car that had the problems at Indianapolis? They had a return to garage. They had a 3-lap penalty. It was wet. They were put onto slicks.
Yeah.
And
spun out the pit lane.
Spun out the pit lane, hit another car, and it was another return to garage again. So their season has been one to forget, but they came good at Sebring. they finished second. After all the trials and tribulations, the sister car, which took 12 points at Indianapolis, won the second round at Silverstone, had a race to forget at Sebring, 6 points for the 53 car. HM Engineering, we never heard back from HM Engineering, who literally stoned the Crows and went on a village of speed at Indianapolis in the Callaway Corvette C7R, won the thing, didn't get pole position, but then we heard nothing from them, and they have not participated since. Even with that, that has still put them in sixth on 26 points. Juice's Motorsport in the GTE. We remember what happened with that car when Nick Newcomb had the misfortune of a technical failure, I think, with his steering wheel hub, and all of a sudden it put him in a wall after Wojtek Bolesny had dramas in the pits.
Deuce's Motorsport were also the ones who took pole in Indianapolis, and then Nick Newcomb's PC just crashed, and he just went straight on at the straight and essentially caused the DNF for them, entirely out of his control, and really shot Deuce's in the foot as well.
Yeah, the 67 Volante racing car is 5 points behind the Porsche GTE from Juice's. ID Simsport, they're on 12 points. One Move Esport in the 31 Ferrari. They have had flashes of brilliance, but they need to start gathering a bit of pace. And especially when a lot of them are French drivers, pretty much the whole team is a French crew, they will look to battle hard at Le Mans. Satellite Racing, the 128, and ID Simsport round out the GTE rankings. Then it has been a pretty good season. 2 wins out of 3. Unison Racing, the all-Russian crew in the Aston Martin. Obviously, things changed coming to Sebring when the BOP adjustment from Studio 397 came into effect, and the Aston Martin was put on a little bit of a restraining order, let's say, in the fact that it wasn't given the complete performance. Yeah, minuscule, but it ended up being like this. But that's allowed the likes of Mugen Sim Racing in the 41 car, the 26 One Move Esport car. They've also come up really, really well. And actually, One Move Esport won last time out at Sebring and took pole position as well. So top 3 covered by 15 points. Danish Racing League, always good to see them with the Sierra GTR 24H 4th in the standings. Consistency definitely reigns supreme with the likes of Callum Wilson and the entire crew at Glam Racing, the 404 Aston Martin. 3 races they finished, and it's been 4th every single time. So a total of 39 points so far this season. The other DIS Sim Racing, it's the McLaren, not the Porsche, like we see in GTE. The 46 car is the penultimately placed car on that grid, 27 points ahead of Teleforingen in the 188 car. So really, I think the biggest battles that we're going to see, I mean, with Mugen running away with proceedings a little bit more than slightly Yusuf in LMP2, the battle for GT and GT3, I think with now going to the Nürburgring, it is still very much all to play for. And I don't think either of those titles will be decided until Le Mans.
No, without a doubt. I don't even think it is... Okay, it is possible for it to be decided before Le Mans, but I highly, highly doubt it. It would require Musto and Mugen to essentially pick up no points in the next 2 rounds. And I mean, the GTE class, you're talking about 9 points separating the top 4 teams. It is that close. And in the GT3 class, yes, Unison have got a 14-point lead, but as you mentioned, those BOP changes and the Aston Martin being somewhat nerfed brings the championship a little closer. And let's not even forget LMP2, because yes, Vargasim Racing are, a long shot clear, and I don't see them getting beaten. I've said before in previous episodes of this podcast and during races that the only team I think are capable of matching Vargasim Racing were Pinsim Drillers, and Pinsim Drillers aren't racing anymore. So I think they've got that in the bag. But in the LMP2 class, when you look from 2nd down to about 6th, you're talking about 7 points separating those teams. So it is still a tight battle, and there is still a lot of entertaining racing to keep your eyes out on for in the LMP2 class, that does have an impact on the championship.
Yeah, well, that really wraps things up for the preview ahead of the fourth round of the GTR 24H Endurance E-Racing World Championship taking place this coming weekend. Things kickstart 8 p.m. Central European summertime this coming Thursday, which is the 24th of June. Qualifying starts from 7 p.m. the night after, and then we start things off at 12 p.m. Central European summertime on the 26th of June. As always, big thank you, Yusuf, for your welcome insight, and good to see you again. That is it from us here at GTR 24H. So on behalf of Yusuf and myself, Alex, thank you very much for watching, and join us live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, all the relevant streams that we provide here on GTR 24H. Head to our official website, gtr24h.org, to find out more information about the championship, how you can get involved, and how you can follow all the action. And also, one final passing note: the weather, as always, in the Eifel region can be a bit unpredictable. Thank you very much. See you very soon. Goodbye.